Leah and Marty, I have a good question here. I'm going to connect two questions. So one person asked, what types of water sources do you find when dowsing? For example, water veins, aquifers, runoff, etc. And do they douse differently? And somebody related to that, Marty specifically, was asking if there's a specific type that you've found to be associated with labyrinths, right? Do all of the labyrinths you have doused have water from underground streams or from water domes? So maybe, Marty, do you want to kick us off on that question?
Sure. I don't douse for the water. I asked for the most appropriate place for the labyrinth to be built. And then the earth tells me where to put it. And then she has the water come over to it if it's not already there. If it's already there, it could be a water dome. It could be where the water comes up and is stopped and then it goes off in different veins. And you never want to drill in the top of a water dome because that breaks the pressure and all the veins dry up. So, but that water dome has the energy circling upward. It attracts cosmic energy coming down. It's a perfect place for a labyrinth because then you've got the water already there. But I don't ask to see if it's already there first. I ask the water the most appropriate place. And she knows more than I do about who's going to come, where they're going to come from, how deep the water is, what's needed, what kind of water it is. I don't have to go into that. She knows. So I ask her. And that's how I get the kind of water. Sometimes it's a vein that gets diverted over into underneath that water, underneath that center of the labyrinth. And sometimes it's an upspout. I don't know. That's the technology. I'm building it with the earth. I'm not doing it all myself. So she handles the energetic of the water. And I just play with her and make it possible. I hope that answers it.
It looks like Nancy's been able to get back with us.
Good. She's still muted though.
You're muted.
Yeah, you have to unmute, Nancy. Can you click the mic button? There you go.
Good. I pushed the unmute twice and okay, there it is now. Hi, everybody. Anything I can contribute? Anybody have any questions? I've spent 25 years teaching highly intuitive children and other children to honor their own inner knowing. And actually, I've ended up by having a camp for 1 week every summer for about 15 years. And it was a family camp. And I ended up realizing that I was not educating the children who are naturally very intuitive, psychic, in fact. I was actually educating the parents on how to educate them and to accept their own children, and that everything that we've been talking about today, especially Marty's way of relating to the universe, is totally real. And I've been spending the last 10 years working on developing a finding, not being an original researcher, developing an understanding of the science behind why it's true. So the title of my book that I've been working on for 15 years has been evolving. It went from the aware human to the profound awareness to the quantum human, because I've ended up developing a chart that shows who are we? Well, okay, so most children go to school and learn that we're made out of chemicals and that we're alive for a certain amount of time, and then that's about it. They don't talk about anything more. So what I've developed is, how are we going to change our educational system to align with the reality that we are infinite beings?
Yeah.
Quantum is the in word, so we are quantum human, because our field, what Marty uses layers, I also use layers because it works. It works as a concept,
Yeah.
But in fact, it's a reality, a real concept. So getting children to accept and understand, and the parents to understand that they don't have to defend their children's right to be capable of seeing what most of the world hasn't yet learned how to see, but they have the capacity. And Marty actually adored your phrase, just because it's not, how did you put it earlier today? I wrote it down, in fact, because I loved the way you put it. In any case, it's all real, and we all have access to it when we're ready to have access to, you say, that seventh layer. Hey, it's even the third layer out, whatever.
Yeah.
What else? What can I be helpful with?
Well, now that you're here, I'm so glad, Nancy, we figured that out. Why don't we continue with the questions, and then I'll just leave it open as you all want to chime in and answer. So I'll go down and let's see. Actually, I'll go back to that question I posed to Marty, because Lee, you didn't get a chance to answer that as well. The question was about, and Nancy, you're welcome to chime in here as well, is what types of water sources do you find while dowsing, if there's specific types like water veins, aquifers, runoff, etc., and do they douse differently?
I'll take that. I deal mostly in crystalline bedrock, and we don't have true aquifers. We have fractured control flow. And once, like I said, in 16 different rock types, it's going to be very different. Shale and a few other rocks are just notorious, low yielding because, water doesn't move through solid rock. It's in the fractures. We'll have a few aquifers, in the coastal plain, but I don't really deal down there. I've had some little experience right on the edge of the fall line, but I just don't deal with aquifers because, only a few of the river bottoms and the mountains have true aquifers, and they're probably more likely to be contaminated and muddy and likely to flood. So does that answer that question? I would add that Nancy invited me to teach at a number of her camps. Yeah. And the first year, I had out all my tools and I did my show and got the kids to find chocolate, hidden chocolate, and then they took off. They were bored with me because, they knew these things intuitively or, their own, they believed in them. But the parents were able to learn.
I especially remember the one about trees, and you wanted to show them how to assess the energy field of a particular tree across the field, and they went and they threw the L rods away, but I can just feel it. Yeah, bam, there it is.
Yeah. And the other thing, one of our camps, families came from Italy and Hong Kong and the West Coast to bring their kids to support them to realize that they were special, and they wanted to support them. And that just really blew me away. So I was so honored that I was able to participate with Nancy and many of her schools.
Yeah.
Thank you to you both. I'll move on. Marty, we have a question about something that was mentioned in the introduction. The person asks, can you tell the story of your grandfather offering dowsing in response to some tragedy? Since the world is so troubled now, I'm wondering what sorts of intuitive techniques such as dowsing or art making, etc., might help us to survive.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that my grandfather did there are two stories that are kind of combined in that one. The first one is that he took me out when I was about 5 years old to teach me how to douse. And I went everywhere with him, and we dowsed whether the lilies and the flowers that we found in the woods, the wild ones, wanted to be in our garden. And if they said yes, we dug them up and took them home. But if they said no, we didn't. We respected totally what they wanted. The other thing he did with me when I was just before going to grade school, I was fighting with my sister, and she took one of my toys, and I was crying. So Grandpa took me out in the backyard, and it was night, and he said, I'm going to give you something no one can ever take away. And I stopped crying, and I said, okay. And he puts his hands up like this, and he said, now look through there. And I looked through his hands, and inside his hands were the Pleiades. And he said, Marty, those are yours. No one can ever take them. So now I own the Pleiades. And I've owned them my whole life. So when he did that, he just gave me something that I don't ever have to worry about anything being stolen, because it's less valuable to me than the Pleiades, because my grandfather gave them to me. So that's, one of the things in that childhood thing that changed how I hold life. And then years later, I was working on a sculpture, and my grandfather showed up in a meditation, and he took me to the Pleiades and showed me where he lived. He and my grandmother live now on the Pleiades, and how their homes were built and how courtyards were done. And I used the configuration of the courtyard. In fact, I was doing it already in the sculpture that I was making. So it's like, these contacts, they're not cut off. When people leave, when people die, they don't go away. They go do what they need to do wherever they are, but you can always get back in touch with them. So dowsing is outrageous. We're outrageous critters. I mean, we really are, that we can actually feel out into our auric field, which encompasses all there is. I'm already on the Pleiades, and so are my grandparents. So these kinds of things are possible to you. I'm no different than you are. Just trust it. And as Lee said, trusting is the hardest part of dowsing. And it's, douse for simple things. Like, where does the water come into your house? Drive, walk around the house and get where that pipe is. Go down in the basement and see if it's there. Do things that you can double check, and then trust it. And just trust it. That's all. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Marty. We have a question, Marty Lee. Earlier you showed your pendulums. We had someone who asked if it's possible to do a demo of how to dowse with a pendulum with a sample question. And the sample question they gave was something like how to dowse for COVID in a person.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, you can dowse for anything if it's done ethically. And like any tool, no matter what the tool is, you hold it. Mine just wiggles around until I try to find something. And then I ask, please show me my yes response. And my yes goes back and forth. That's my yes. And then it goes into wait. Like, what's your next question? It circles to the right. So what is a no response? And it goes no. So your yes and no may be a spin to the right and a spin to the left, or a diagonal one way or a diagonal another way. Whatever you get, that's your response. And keep it. Don't change it just because some expert says yes should look a certain way. Your yes is yours. My fingerprints are mine. You don't have to have them. You don't have to have anything like mine. So let your dowsing tell you what it wants to be. Don't make it do anything. And always keep it, because when you have a very serious question, you don't want to mistrust what the dowser's doing, because you can't remember what your yes and no is. So always keep the same one. I think that helps a little, maybe.
That brings up to me that the concept of permission and ethics. And I'll just share a little bit. The classic is you can stick your nose in places where you shouldn't be and get information that you shouldn't have. So the traditional questions, can I do this? May I do this? Should I do this? Well, should's iffy, may. So I've made my own personal, am I able to dowse this question accurately at this time? And I just picked up a tool. I went to I rubbed my hands over a collection. My hands burned over one. I picked it up. I figured it was telling me that was the one for me. And let's see, I'm not holding this high enough to show, but I started moving it to get momentum. And then I asked myself and the tool to show me a motion that easily said what's yes to a question. And I got a counterclockwise circle. A lot of the books say you should get it clockwise. Well, once again, it's you and your tool. So then I said, well, show me another motion. And I get my tool moving to start with to get some inertia. Show me another motion that indicates no to my clearly worded questions. So I get my no. And once again, after about 10 years, I realized that I needed a kind of poorly worded question or question not available, and I get a diagonal swing. So some people talk about the strength of the energy, being, but whatever works for you.
I would add one more thing to what he does, and that is it in the highest good I douse at this time? So some things shouldn't be found out. I mean, I was at the Dowsers convention and someone came with this report that a child had been abducted by his uncle and they needed to find him and where was he and no. Well, I douse, is it in the highest good we find that child? And I got to know. And so then I doused and kept dowsing and dowsing my questions. And it turned out that the uncle had saved the child from being brutalized by the parents. So he was actually hiding the child so he could grow up safely and not be violated when he found out he was being misused. So it's not in the highest good to find that child at that time. So I always ask, is it in the highest good? And boy, I'll tell you, you keep out of a lot of trouble if you do that first. Yeah.
I sort of approach that with my third question, is now an appropriate time to douse. But it's a little, what she's saying is a little different, and I really honor her commitment to that. Nancy, you want to add to any of that? Or
I don't know if I'm allowed to unmute myself because apparently there's a static when I speak.
That's okay.
No, it's just when you don't speak. It's when you're done speaking, Nancy, there's static in the background. When you're speaking, it sounds great.
Oh, good. I absolutely love everything both of you have shared. I just want to add for everybody else that's not into well dowsing, everything that Marty and Lee have been speaking about for teaching well dowsing is the same kind of training, logical thinking, analytical thinking, getting enough questions to getting to the right answer for training any child to grow up to be intuitive. Because intuition to me, I've discovered, is both the combination of the right brain and the left brain working together. In other words, Lee may be more left brain, Marty may be more right brain, whichever is whichever. The thing is they both use both sides because they're a whole human being. And so, so in raising the kids the last 20 years and having them at camp or answering questions online from wherever around the world, it's always, did you ask enough questions? Did you dig deep enough? Because you can ask 10 questions and get a totally wrong answer when just one more avenue into questioning would have gotten you the perfect answer. So well dowsing, just change the name off of well to raising highly intuitive human beings and yourself.
Thanks, Nancy. I'm so glad we can hear from you now. All
right.
Marty, we have I have some questions about labyrinths, and I'm going to try and consolidate them. It relates to location. So on the what happens, if you build a labyrinth first without dowsing, just maybe because it's a beautiful scenic spot, is that going to attract or create certain energies?
Yes. Yes. Once you build a labyrinth, the earth will do everything she can to empower it. So she'll bring water to it. There'll be water under the center of the labyrinth. So you can go out and douse that. Is there any water? And then you can walk around the labyrinth and find out where the energy lines come off the labyrinth and what direction are they going. They come from the center of the labyrinth and they go out in 3 or odd numbers, never two, always 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and you never know. So you can dowse around the outside edge and find where the energy is flowing. Usually the strongest energy will be in the entrance of the labyrinth. And if you find that nobody wants to walk your labyrinth, then check to see whether there's a better entrance, whether you should put the whole entrance area in a different direction. And that will bring in more people because it will be over the strongest energy line that comes off that water that's been created in the center. Yeah.
Great, Marty. So the next question related to a labyrinth location then is whether dowsing can be used to find the best places to plant trees or gardens, and whether this will help with dealing with climate change and gardens generally.
Yes, absolutely. And Nancy's got to answer that too, because she knows that trees know just where they want to be planted. And they seem to know, or the earth knows, or the spirit of the place, what's going to happen in the future. So you're not planting a tree that's going to have to be dug up or cut down because you're going to put a driveway or a shed out that way. So Nancy, go ahead.
To add, as a landscape architect, I discovered years ago, after having listened to my intuition for years, but not applying it as strongly to my work as a career, I had a wonderful experience one time that surprised the heck out of me. I'm sitting on a drafting table, back when we all used drafting tables, not computers, and I'm citing the plants that I want to use for the location of this client, and all of a sudden, it didn't come from me. It came from somewhere else. I totally erased. No, we can't go there. And I moved it. I moved the shrub that I wanted just this tiny little bit up and around the corner. And then I drew the circle for it. And I just sat back and went, what just happened? That shrub, whichever it was, I've forgotten, it's been 15 years, that shrub wanted a microclimate difference than where I was starting to put it. It didn't want the east side, it wanted the north, or whatever direction that example was. And that's when I started to really listen to realizing that they can contact us, they can connect with us at any time that we're allowing energy to flow through us while we're working. And creative work of any kind is very definitely, you have to be in the flow for it, so to speak. But that was one of my more dramatic reminders that I should be paying attention on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question related to the labyrinth is if you could go over again, what water patterns do you look for in order to place a labyrinth on a surface?
That's easy. I don't. I ask the earth the most appropriate place for the labyrinth. And she's the one who handles the water. She knows where it is. She knows where it's coming from. Sometimes it's on a water dome. It's already there. But that's not convenient. I put labyrinths on children's playgrounds. I can put them on the side of a hill. I put them in California. We had to make steps to go up the sides to get around it because it was on such a high level slant. So no, I couldn't use my noggin to say that doesn't look like a good place. And trees get involved in it, all those things. And water comes to it. The earth handles the water. I don't have to do that. I don't look for the water first. I look for the most appropriate place. There was one woman that wanted her labyrinth out front. Well, anybody putting the labyrinth out front, they would have to walk up her driveway, go past one area like a bedroom window to get to the labyrinth. Well, that's not appropriate. Anybody could come and do that. So when I asked the most appropriate place, it was off to the left beyond the house, so they could have a separate path that didn't involve the house, that they could get to the labyrinth from the road, from a little place they could park. So no, My good idea didn't work. Her good idea didn't work. So I told her the most appropriate place. And when she had it built, she thanked me because she realized that what she thought was good would not have been wouldn't have made them happy. Even though it may have been a good energized place, it wasn't appropriate for the use that it would have. So that word appropriate fits an awful lot of things besides just the water. So always ask that and let the water take care of itself. Okay? Hope that answers.
Checking Nancy Lee, anything you want to add before I move on to the next question?
I just want to bring attention that, underground water has energy to it that we can detect, and it can be harmful to us over a long period. The British and the Germans have been studying geopathic energies. I prefer the term uncomfortable energies to me because the cat may love it, but the dog, like me, would avoid it. There's stone circles in England. I've only been to a dozen or so, that there's a energy dome below them, a water dome that is the exact diameter of the outer stones.
Right.
So somebody was sensing that and setting that up. There's also anecdotal stories that cows will knock fences down to have birth above these water domes. So it could be that it's anesthetic or something. So it's hard to say, but I also recommend the British Society of Dowsers.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we have it on our webpage now. Nancy and Marty added some American comments to a glossary of terms.
Right.
The British Society of Dowsers developed, so that we've got the same vocabulary. So we're talking apples and apples and oranges and oranges. So I highly recommend that, and I'm pretty sure it's on our webpage.
Yeah, the stone circles throughout England, I've gone to thousands of them. I would get off from teaching, fly to England, rent a car and spend a month. And I'd hunt up ancient sacred sites. And John Michelle, one of my favorite people on the planet, used to tell me where different places were that I should definitely not miss. And we went even to Stonehenge together. So we've had this wonderful time, but they all were on the grid, the ancient earth grid, which is energy lines of Mother Earth, and they were all had water. And often there was a spring next to them too, not only just the underground water dome, but a spring of water. So almost every sacred site has water. And even if you don't see it on the surface, sometimes you'll see a spring next to it. So yeah, they all have water, and it's usually pure, potable, year-round flow of water. It's gorgeous. So, and a lot of the new grid came in. And so there's very few of the old stone circles that are on the new grid. They're just history now. And the new grid is formed. And so you can find water domes under people's gardens. You can find water domes with the grid where it goes. It's all beneficial energy. And the detrimental energy or the uncomfortable energy is needed. It's needed on the planet. You've got to have both the plus and the negative. And the detrimental energy is great for hornets, fire ants, all kinds of critters. They thrive on it. Honeybees love it. So, don't think everything has to be a certain way. There's a purpose for everything. But we don't do well on detrimental energy. And so and again, everything is alive and intelligent and wants to play. So energy lines will shift their vibration to become beneficial, either for a short distance through your home or for the full length. And I've found a lot of lines that had been beneficial that had been shifted to detrimental by government military means. HARP, all these other installations can cause really a lot of mischief. And wherever there's wars, there are no more positive energy lines. So they also respond to us. So anyway, you can ask it to go back to being beneficial, and it will. Just, I call in the highest beings, Mother, Father, God. Thank you for helping us. Please assist this energy line in becoming its normal beneficial vibration. and then protect it so it stays that way as long as it chooses to be so. So those are the kinds of things that you can do with dowsing. And yeah, that energy is healing. It's inspiring. It's enlightening. It's all those wonderful things. And yeah, even the Native Americans would have their either conception or birthing on the sacred sites. So yeah, good reason, good purpose.
Thank you, Marty. And everyone, I'm going to call attention to the clock that we're coming to the close of our time. We have about 4 minutes left. So I'm thinking, why don't we do some final closing thoughts, some just brief statements from each of you. And I'd suggest we go, Lee, if you could go first, Nancy, if you could go second, and then Marty will end with you. And then once you wrap up, Marty, Bill, we'll have you come on to wrap us up and say goodbye. So Lee, go ahead and wrap us up with your final thoughts.
Wow. Once again, dowsing techniques allow you to understand the universe better, empowering. You can use them to find out information and protect yourself. There's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about, we didn't get to. But I consider, water well dowsing kind of a beginning drug into tapping into your intuition, in that, once again, the better questions, build confidence, share it with others, would be my final comments.
Yeah. Yeah, my final comment would be, go explore, go have fun with it. Douse everything. Douse, if it's in the highest good, you do it. Don't dig into somebody else's business if it's none of yours, but go have fun with it. Really, it's your own native, natural ability. So improve it, use it, have fun. That's it.
Nancy, did you get a chance to go?
Oh, yes. Dowsing, like pendulum dowsing, which I do more of at the moment, is designed for finding solutions to problems, or finding problems, or finding solutions to problems. There's another word, geomancy.
Yeah.
I guess you could use that, or you don't have to use that, because it's really, my passion at the moment is, how do we help the whole planet heal? Emotionally, physically, spiritually, politically, whatever. It's going to take all of us, every single one of us. And some people have been telling me that you can use it in a geomantic sense. You could do your dowsing. If you're doing your pendulum dowsing to say, how much of this vitamin should I take today? You could also do it in a more prayerful mode to say, I love the earth today, and douse it. And if your dowsing rod, pendulum spins 5 times, maybe that's as much energy as our healing capacity can absorb for that day, but maybe it'll go to 10 or 20 or whatever numbering system you want to use. I think that we all can sit in our own homes and bring more balance and love to the planet through using it as a tool of healing.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Marty and Lee and Nancy, and also Caitlin for being there to assist the whole thing. But I just wanted to, one thing I really enjoy is to the fact that, one of the most recognized cerebral minds of for quite some time, Albert Einstein, also recognized that it wasn't just this rational brain orientation, but it was the use of his intuition. And he was a very active dowser. So he was incorporating not just the mental, but he was taking in all this more subtle stuff. And I think when you combine that in that way, that's probably why he succeeded in what he did. As what Marty said, it's all available to us too. And I really like that. So thank you to all of you for sharing your experiences. And hopefully we'll see everyone on May 16th. That will be our next virtual meeting. And in the meantime, you can visit our website for further information. Nancy is always in the processes of updating that. So thank you again, and we hope to see you the next time around in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely, lovely, lovely.